It has been the craziest few weeks. Jesus has died on the cross, but then he is risen from the dead. No one was sure what to do next. So Peter says, "I'm going fishing." His friends say, "We'll come too." You see, before meeting Jesus and spending 3 years travelling with him, they had been fishermen. Now they were back by the lake, back doing what they did best, fishing. Fishing all night long, but they had caught nothing. I imagine the next morning they were pretty tired, still on that boat out on the lake. But then they noticed on the shoreline a figure. They couldn't quite work out who it was, but he began calling out to them. "Friends, haven't you caught any fish?" "No," they answered. They were probably a bit fed up. Then the man on the shore shouted out, "Throw your nets on the other side, then you'll catch some fish." Now Peter had been fishing all of his life. He knew fishing, and yet he takes this advice from a stranger on the beach. And so they cast their net on the other side of the boat, and suddenly there are fish. Loads of fish. So many fish they can't physically bring the net back onto the boat. And it's then that Peter's friend John, who's also on the boat, realises that the figure on the beach isn't some random stranger, but it's Jesus. As soon as Peter hears this, he wraps his outer garment around his waist and he jumps into the cool water, splash! And he tries to get to the beach as fast as he can. He is desperate to be with Jesus. His friends follow behind in the boat, dragging this massive net of fish behind them. And there on the beach, Jesus has set up a barbecue. There is fresh bread and fresh fish. That smell of a freshly cooked barbecue. And Jesus asks the disciples to bring some of the fish they have caught from the boat. So Peter heads back over there and he gets some of the fish and he drags the net to shore. These fish are big, and there are so many that the disciples decide to count. 1, 2, 3, 153 big fish. And the net isn't even torn. They were probably very hungry, and they begin to munch on the freshly cooked food. Now this was the third time that the disciples had met with Jesus since he'd risen from the dead. And as they're eating, Jesus turns to Peter and says, "Peter, do you love me?" Not just once, but 3 times. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked him the same question 3 times. Perhaps there were tears in his eyes as he remembered back to the night when Jesus had been arrested, when Peter had denied knowing Jesus 3 times. "Lord, you know I love you," he responds. And then Jesus says to Peter that he wants him to be like a shepherd, caring for his people. He shares that life will not always be easy. But Jesus ends by saying to Peter, "Follow me." Number 1. You can read in Acts 2 what happens next in the story with Peter. Why do you think this barbecue was so important? Talk about it as a family. Number 2. The disciples found it difficult to recognise Jesus at first. Read Luke chapter 5 verses 1 to 11. What hint might this story give us? Number 3. Jesus did lots of round meals. Plan a special meal for the week ahead as a family and invite God to be a central part of that meal. Number 4. As a family, draw some fish outlines, cut them out, and write or draw things to be thankful to God for. Number 5. Peter had previously let Jesus down, but in this story, Jesus forgives him. How as family do we sometimes let each other down? And what does it mean to forgive each other? For more ideas of how you can explore the Christian faith in the home, check out the Kitchen Table Project.